Space is infinite, vast, and cold. It is a frontier of wonders and dangers, but it has one unyielding truth: loneliness. For all the breathtaking beauty and the thrill of exploration, the vastness of the galaxy often felt like a mirror to my own solitude. I had lived a life full of battles, victories, and sacrifices, but there were days when the weight of the stars pressed down on me harder than the gravity of any planet. "This is Captain Rogers, mission number 12, I recorded into the ship's log. The Odyssey cruised through the uncharted Persis sector, its sensors scanning the dark void. "We're out here chasing signals again. Strange ones, faint, but persistent. Maybe it's nothing, an echo of a dying star, a malfunctioning satellite. But out here, in the quiet, you learn to follow every whisper." That's when we saw it, an anomaly unlike anything I'd encountered. A shimmering energy field, swirling with colors beyond comprehension. It hovered in the space between systems, pulsing as if alive. And then the voice came. "Help me!" The voice wasn't human, yet it resonated with a strange, haunting familiarity. It wasn't just a call for help. It was a cry filled with pain, fear, and something deeper. "McCall," I said, turning to my first officer. "Is that coming from the anomaly?" She nodded, her eyes wide with both fascination and caution. "It's faint, Captain. Almost like a thought more than a signal. Thoughts don't sound like that," I muttered, gripping the console. "Bring us closer." The swirling anomaly dominated the view screen, its colors defying logic and its edges pulsating with an almost lifelike rhythm. It wasn't just a random cosmic phenomenon. It felt intentional, as though it had been waiting for us. A faint voice echoed through the ship's comm systems again, resonating deep within me. "Help me!" The words weren't in any language I knew, yet I understood them completely. The tone carried something more than desperation. It was layered with pain, loss, and a quiet plea for connection. "McCall, report," I said, breaking the tense silence on the bridge. Her fingers flew over her console, pulling up scans of the anomaly. "The readings are inconsistent, Captain. Energy levels are off the charts, but there's something more. I'm detecting traces of organic matter within the field." "Organic?" I repeated, stepping closer to the console. "You mean there's something alive in there?" She hesitated. "Possibly. It could be a ship, or it could be something else entirely." The bridge crew exchanged uneasy glances. We'd encountered plenty of strange phenomena in our travels, but there was something uniquely unsettling about this. "Helm, bring us closer," I said, my tone firm. "McCall, keep scanning. I want to know what we're dealing with before we risk bringing it aboard." "Yes, sir," she replied, but her voice carried a note of doubt. The Odyssey crept forward, its engines humming softly as we entered the anomaly's outer edge. The ship's lights dimmed momentarily, the system struggling to adjust to the fluctuating energy around us. "Shields holding," McCall reported. "But whatever's in there, it's interfering with our sensors. I'm getting flashes of readings. There's definitely something physical at the center of this." I nodded, my eyes fixed on the view screen. The colors of the anomaly seemed to shift and dance, drawing us in like moths to a flame. "Captain," McCall said suddenly, her voice sharper now. "I'm detecting a vessel. It's organic." "Organic?" I repeated again, this time with a sharper edge. The image on the view screen resolved into something that defied classification. It wasn't a ship in the traditional sense. Its surface was smooth and iridescent, like the skin of some colossal sea creature, and it pulsed faintly as though alive. "That thing is alive," said Carter, our lead engineer, his voice low with awe. "It's a vessel," McCall corrected, "but it's like nothing I've ever seen." "Life signs?" I asked. "One," she replied. "Faint, but stable. The decision to bring the life form aboard wasn't made lightly. The crew debated furiously. Some feared it was a trap, while others argued that leaving it to drift in the anomaly was a death sentence. I weighed their arguments carefully before speaking. We've all been stranded before. We've all needed a hand when things look bleak. If there's a chance we can save whoever, or whatever, is in there, we take it. That's what we do. The crew fell silent, their protests fading. They knew me well enough to understand that when I'd made up my mind, there was no changing it. The airlock cycled open with a hiss, and the figure stepped aboard. The first thing that struck me was the light. Her skin shimmered faintly, catching and refracting the sterile glow of the Odyssey's corridors. She moved with a grace that seemed almost unnatural, her eyes glowing softly as they scanned the room. She wasn't human, that much was clear, but there was something about her presence that felt familiar, comforting even. "I am Lyra," she said, her voice resonating in the air like the hum of a perfectly tuned instrument. "You have saved me." I stepped forward, keeping my movements slow and deliberate. "I'm Captain Rogers," I said. "You're aboard the Odyssey. Can you tell us what happened to you out there?" Lyra tilted her head slightly, as though considering my question. "My vessel was attacked. I have been drifting for what feels like lifetimes." Her words hung in the air, and I felt an unexpected pang of sympathy. I knew what it was like to drift, to feel lost and untethered. "Attacked by who?" McCall asked, her tone cautious. Lyra's glowing eyes darkened slightly. "The Zothar," she said, the word carrying a weight that made the air feel colder. "They are destroyers, conquerors. They saw my people as a threat, and so they wiped us out." I exchanged a glance with McCall. The Zothar were a name we knew well, an enemy we'd faced before, but never like this. Over the following days, Lyra became a part of the Odyssey. She spent hours in the med bay recovering from her ordeal, and though she spoke little at first, she gradually opened up. Her world, she explained, had been a place of light and harmony. Her people had lived in communion with the stars themselves, their technology a seamless blend of the organic and the mechanical. But the Zothar had feared them, seeing their advanced civilization as a threat. "They destroyed everything," Lyra said one evening as we stood in the observation deck, the stars stretching endlessly before us. "My family, my people, all gone." Her voice trembled, and for a moment, I saw through the shimmering facade of her alien form to the pain beneath. "I'm sorry," I said, my voice soft. "I've seen what they're capable of. I've fought them before, but never like this." She turned to me, her glowing eyes searching mine. "And why do you fight, Captain? What is it that drives you?" The question caught me off guard. I'd been asked it before, but never with such genuine curiosity. "I fight because someone has to," I said after a moment. "Because if I don't, the people I care about, Earth, my crew, they won't stand a chance." Lyra nodded slowly, her expression thoughtful. "You carry a great burden, Captain, but you do not have to carry it alone." It was in those quiet moments that I began to feel something I hadn't felt in years, a connection. Lyra and I were from different worlds, different species, but our experiences had left scars that were strangely similar. Her presence on the ship changed the atmosphere. The crew, initially wary of her, began to warm to her gentle demeanor and the wealth of knowledge she shared. She taught Carter new ways to enhance our systems, showed McCall strategies that had kept her own people safe for centuries. But it was with me that she shared the most. Late at night, when the rest of the ship was quiet, we would talk about her world, about mine, about the things we had lost. "You are unlike anyone I have ever met, Rogers," she said one night, her voice barely above a whisper. "You're not so bad yourself," I replied, a faint smile tugging at the corners of my mouth. Lyra's presence aboard the Odyssey was transformative. For weeks, She worked with the crew, her knowledge of the cosmos, and its many mysteries a beacon in the dark. But more than her wisdom, it was her spirit that resonated with us. She wasn't just an alien rescued from an anomaly. She became one of us, a vital thread woven into the fabric of our journey. "Captain, you've got to see this," Carter called from the engineering bay one afternoon. His tone, equal parts excitement and disbelief, drew me away from my usual bridge duties. When I arrived, Lyra stood beside him, her luminous hands gesturing toward a holographic projection of our star charts. With every movement, the map shifted, revealing previously hidden pathways between systems, routes undetectable to human scanners. "These are slipstreams," Lyra explained, her melodic voice carrying the weight of knowledge. "Natural folds in space-time, invisible to most but navigable if you understand their rhythm. How did you unlock this?" I asked, marveling at the intricacy of the chart. "I attuned your systems to detect the frequencies emitted by these folds," she replied, as though it were the simplest thing in the universe. Carter shook his head in amazement. "This tech, it's like nothing I've ever seen. If we can integrate this fully, Captain, it'll revolutionize how we travel." I turned to Lyra, gratitude mixing with awe. "You've given us an edge we never thought possible." Her expression softened, and for a moment, her glowing eyes met mine. "You gave me a place to belong. It's the least I can do." In the quiet hours after shifts, Lyra and I often found ourselves on the observation deck, the vastness of space stretching out before us. Those moments, away from the demands of command and the burdens of survival, felt like stolen fragments of peace. One night, as we gazed at a distant nebula shimmering with blues and silvers, Lyra spoke softly. "My people used to sing to the stars," she said, her voice tinged with melancholy. "Our songs were a way to connect with the universe, to remind ourselves that we were a part of something greater. Do you miss it?" I asked, my voice low. "Every day," she admitted. "But here, aboard your ship, I found something I thought I'd lost forever, a purpose." Her words stirred something in me. I had spent so long focused on missions, battles, and survival that I had forgotten what it meant to feel truly connected to someone. Lyra's presence was a reminder of what I had been missing, not just as a captain, but as a person. "I've been to a lot of places," I said after a moment. "Seen things I never thought I'd see, but none of it ever felt like enough." She turned to me, her luminous eyes filled with understanding. "And now?" I hesitated, the words catching in my throat. "Now I'm not so sure." Our quiet reprieve didn't last long. One evening, as the Odyssey drifted near a dying star, the ship's alarms blared. "Captain, to the bridge!" Bacall's voice crackled over the comms. I arrived to find her standing rigid at her station, her face pale. "We've got company," she said, gesturing to the view screen. A Zothar warship loomed in the distance, its sleek, organic design a stark contrast to the cold machinery of human vessels. "They've been tracking us," Lyra said, her voice calm but resolute. "They know I'm here." Bacall turned to her, disbelief etched across her face. "How? The anomaly should have masked your signal." Lyra's gaze didn't waver. "The Zothar have ways of finding what they fear. My presence on your ship puts all of you at risk. Then we'll deal with it," I said firmly. "We've faced the Zothar before." "Not like this," she replied, her voice heavy with warning. "They won't stop until they have me, or destroy everything to ensure I'm no longer a threat." The tension on the bridge was palpable. The crew looked to me, their trust evident despite the danger we faced. "Bacall, prepare the ship for evasive maneuvers," I ordered. "Weapons on standby." "Captain, with all due respect, we're outmatched," Carter said, his voice low. "Maybe," I replied, my gaze shifting to Lyra. "But we've got something they don't." The Zothar warship closed in, its weapons charging. The first volley struck hard, shaking the Odyssey to its core. "Shields at 67%, McCall shouted. "Return fire," I commanded. The Odyssey's railguns fired, their rounds streaking through space and impacting the Zothar vessel's hull. But their shields absorbed most of the damage, barely leaving a scratch. "They're adapting," Lyra warned, her tone urgent. "Your weapons won't be enough." "Then what do you suggest?" I asked, gripping the edge of my console. Lyra stepped forward, her movements decisive. "Their ships are symbiotic, connected to their pilots. If we can disrupt that connection, we can disable them." "How?" "Your sensors emit frequencies that are close to their neural links," she explained. "If I can amplify those frequencies, I can sever their control temporarily." "Do it," I said without hesitation. Lyra worked quickly, her hands moving over the controls with practiced precision. The ship's systems hummed with an unfamiliar energy as she manipulated them, the screens displaying data that even Carter couldn't comprehend. "Frequency amplification ready," she said finally. "Fire it up," I ordered. The ship's comm systems emitted a low-frequency pulse, invisible but powerful. On the view screen, the Zothar warship faltered, its movements becoming erratic. "They're losing control," McCall exclaimed. "Hit them now," I commanded. The Odyssey unleashed another barrage, this time striking true. The Zothar vessel's shields failed, and its hull began to fracture. "They're retreating," McCall reported, relief evident in her voice. The bridge erupted in cheers, but Lyra's expression remained somber. "This is only the beginning," she said quietly. "They will come back, stronger." In the aftermath of the battle, the Odyssey limped away from the battlefield, its system strained but operational. Lyra's warning lingered in my mind. Late that night, I found her in the observation deck, staring out at the stars. "You were right," I said, breaking the silence. She turned to me, her expression unreadable. "About the Zothar?" "About everything," I admitted. "About carrying the burden alone. I've been doing it for so long, I forgot what it feels like to have someone share it." Lyra stepped closer, her glowing eyes softening. "You don't have to carry it alone anymore, Rogers." For the first time in years, I believed it. The Odyssey drifted in the shadow of a gas giant, the crew scrambling to repair the damage from the recent battle. Every corridor hummed with activity, but the tension in the air was palpable. We'd survived one encounter with the Zothar, but Lyra's warning hung over us like a storm cloud. They weren't done. Lyra stood by the tactical console on the bridge, her luminous skin dimmed slightly, a visible manifestation of her worry. "They will return soon," she said, her voice steady but filled with a weight that was hard to ignore. "The first ship was a scout. The next will be a fleet." McCall turned from her station, her expression tight. "Captain, we can't handle another battle like that. Not without reinforcements or something more than just luck." "We won't have to," Lyra interjected, her glowing eyes locking with mine. "There is another way." Her words silenced the bridge. Everyone turned to her, waiting for what she had to say. "My people had a failsafe," she explained. "A weapon designed to disrupt the Zothar's neural network entirely. It was never used, never needed, until now." "And where is this weapon?" I asked. Her gaze shifted to the navigation display, where the swirling remnants of the anomaly still pulsed faintly. "There," she said, "at the heart of the anomaly." Navigating back into the anomaly felt like tempting fate. The Odyssey groaned as its systems adjusted to the chaotic energy surrounding us. The colors swirled and shifted, casting strange shadows across the bridge. "Are you sure about this, Lyra?" I asked, my voice low. She nodded, her expression resolute. "The weapon is embedded in the core of my people's last sanctuary. If we can retrieve it, We can end this war before it begins. The sanctuary appeared on the view screen moments later, a massive structure of organic architecture, glowing faintly amidst the chaos of the anomaly. It looked ancient, its once majestic form now fractured and decayed. As we approached, the ship's alarms blared. "Zothar's ships incoming!" McCall shouted. "Multiple bogies on intercept!" "They found us," Lyra said, her voice tinged with regret. "Battle stations," I ordered. "McCall, keep them off us as long as you can." "Lyra, get us inside that structure." The Odyssey surged forward, its railguns blazing as the Zothar fleet closed in. Explosions rippled through the void, the enemy ships relentless in their pursuit. "Shields at 40%, McCall called out. "Get us inside now," I shouted. The Odyssey breached the sanctuary's outer shell, the interior illuminated by a soft, pulsing light. It was a labyrinth of alien structures, glowing pathways stretching in every direction. Lyra guided us toward the core, her knowledge of the place instinctive. "We're almost there," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos. "Make it fast," McCall said over the comms. "We've got Zothar ships breaching the sanctuary. They're coming after us." The Odyssey hovered near the central chamber, its engines humming as Lyra and I prepared to disembark. "Captain, this is madness," McCall protested. "You don't have to go in there. Let Lyra handle it. She can't do it alone," I said firmly. "And I'm not letting her face this without backup." The chamber was vast, its walls alive with shifting patterns of light. At the center stood the failsafe, a crystalline structure pulsating with raw energy. It radiated a power that was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. "This is it," Lyra said, stepping toward it. "The weapon that can destroy the Zothar's network. Can we activate it remotely?" I asked. She shook her head. "It must be triggered manually. And once activated, it will draw every Zothar ship in the system. They'll know we're here. Then we don't have much time," I said. As she worked, the walls trembled. The sound of distant explosions grew louder. "They're here," she said softly. The Zothar swarmed the sanctuary, their ships firing relentlessly at the Odyssey. McCall and the crew fought valiantly, their efforts keeping the enemy at bay for as long as possible. Inside the chamber, Lyra's hands moved over the crystalline structure, her touch causing it to glow brighter. "It's ready," she said, turning to me. "Once it activates, the energy pulse will destroy every Zothar vessel in range, but it will also destroy this sanctuary and anyone inside." I nodded, my jaw tightening. "Then we'll finish this together." "No," she said, her voice breaking. "You must go. Your people need you. I will stay and ensure the activation is complete." I stared at her, the weight of her words sinking in. "Lyra, I can't leave you here." "You must," she said, stepping closer. Her glowing eyes met mine, filled with both sadness and resolve. "You have shown me a world beyond my own, a connection I thought was lost forever. But this is my fight, Rogers. Let me finish it." The sounds of battle grew louder, the wall shaking as the sanctuary began to collapse. Lyra reached up, her hand brushing against my face. "Thank you," she said softly, "for everything." I placed my hand over hers, my heart heavy. "You're not just a part of this mission, Lyra. You're a part of me now." Her eyes shimmered with tears, a rare display of emotion. "Then carry me with you, Rogers. Always." I stepped back reluctantly, my instincts screaming at me to stay. But I knew she was right. As I boarded the shuttle and the doors closed behind me, I looked back one last time. Lyra stood at the center of the chamber, her form illuminated by the pulsating light of the failsafe. She smiled faintly, her expression one of peace. The failsafe activated as the shuttle cleared the sanctuary. A brilliant wave of energy erupted outward, consuming the Zothar fleet and the sanctuary itself. The shockwave rocked the Odyssey, but when it cleared, the enemy ships were gone. The bridge of the Odyssey was silent as the crew processed what had happened. Lyra's sacrifice had saved them all, but the loss was palpable. McCall turned to me, her voice soft. "Captain, we're receiving messages from Earth. The Zothar threat is gone." I nodded, unable to speak. My gaze drifted to the stars outside, where the sanctuary had once been. In my quarters later, I held a small fragment of Lyra's sanctuary she had given me, a glowing crystal that pulsed faintly, its light a reminder of her. "You'll always be with me," I whispered. "Always." Lyra's sacrifice ended the Zothar's reign of terror, but her legacy lived on in the hearts of the Odyssey's crew and in mine. She had taught me that even in the darkest corners of the universe, love and hope could shine brighter than any star. And as the Odyssey sailed toward its next mission, I looked out at the infinite expanse and smiled. "Until next time, Lyra," I murmured. "We'll keep looking up."